Hey everybody, welcome to the PC Perspective Podcast. This is episode 603, being recorded on October 28th, 2020. I'm Sebastian Peak.
I'm Jeremy Hellstrom.
I'm Josh Walrath, and you know what? I had actually cleaned my wife's desk
It's
this
gorgeous.
week, and somehow, I even cleaned up my room. I mean, all the boxes are gone, a lot of trash is off the floor, but
The helmets are
I
lined
just
up
can't
nicely.
win. I can't win. I still got the Ripper XXL, not to be confused with Threadripper. Anyway, I'm sorry, Jeremy. I went off on a tangent.
I was just saying your helmets are lined up nicely.
Oh, maybe it's
and
Brett.
it's Brett next.
Yeah.
I've forgotten who I am. No, I'm Brett.
That's Brett
Van
Van Spruenberg himself. You can subscribe to our mailing list to find out when we go live for events like this live podcast recording session by going to pcper.com/subscribe. I think we also have a link to subscribe in each podcast show note
We do.
on the site, so just do that.
The chords during the podcast.
Yeah. And you can go to patreon.com/PCPer to help support the arts, the art of podcasting, the art of reviewing content. It's all in the name of content. Live streaming, that sort of thing. Paying the bills. Do we have a burger update, Josh? Where is
No.
that? Oh.
Now, there was a water main break downtown, and so the burger place was actually closed today. Instead, I had to take a picture of our puppy. I came out of the bathroom, and there she was. I hope she was comfortable on the guest bed with the nest that she had built. Darn dogs. She's like 14, 15 weeks old now. Smart, blue heeler, likes to chew on everything. So yeah, there's the update.
That's a blue healer, all right.
Oh, she's 100% blue heeler. Look at those bat ears.
Yep.
She's got the left patch, just like all the cool football players these days, wearing the black thing under their left eye.
Shifting immediately into the news. Did you know that AMD held a special live event on their YouTube channel today? Anyway, Radeon, AMD announced today on a live event the RX. Well, they already announced it, but they detailed it. They detailed the RX 6000 series lineup. The short version is that there are 3 GPUs currently announced: the 6800, 6800 XT, and 6900 XT. All 3 have 16 gigabytes of GDDR6 memory. They have high clocks. Not quite as high as some of the rumors, but there's a little bit more to the clock story there. Boost clocks of up to 2,250 megahertz for the top 2 SKUs, and then up to 2105 for the 6800. TDPs look okay. Total board power, I should say, TBP. 300 watts for the top 2 SKUs, 250 watts for the 6800. But again, there's more to the story. And then launch pricing, $579 for the 6800, $649 for the 6800 XT, $999 for the 6900 XT, which is coming later. The other 2 launch, its expected launch date is November 18 for the bottom 2 SKUs, with the big Navi RX 6900 XT launching on December 8th, or at least that's the expected launch date. So, you know. But
That is some nicely binned silicon at the high end there. It's probably why they've got an extra, 2 or 3 weeks?
Yes. Well, okay, so
Yeah.
You know
what do you think, guys, about the Infinity Cache, about Smart Access Memory, and about their, what is it, Rage mode? The one-click overclock
Rage
mode?
mode.
Rage mode, yeah.
Because this is a huge jump. They're talking about a
It is.
2x performance jump over the previous gen.
Yeah.
If we look at that.
So if
There's
their
some
Infinity
alien
cache-
DNA in this RDNA.
The Infinity Cache is, 128 meg all on chip?
Yep.
That's very interesting of them to dedicate so many transistors to that. But it's really paying off because they've been able to slim down their bus to go with GDDR6 instead of 6X, and to dedicate less power to their memory subsystem. You can see it's working for them, and they're stated total board power rates versus NVIDIA.
Well, that's a lot of transistors though for cache.
It
You got to really balance that out. I mean, would they have done better if dropping that down to 64 megs and increasing compute units?
Interesting.
I don't know. I mean, it's there's a lot going on there, and but I do find how that they're leveraging this cache to be, it's a brute force thing, because cache does take up a lot of power, and the CPU, it's one of the most power hungry things. You got on the Ryzen 5000 series, you got 32 megs of cache per chiplet. And yeah, that takes up a significant amount of your TDP. But at the same time, you don't have to do a lot of main memory stuff. And not only that, but you got prefetch that's also working to fill up that 128 megs with stuff that you need right when you need it. So it's a lot of juggling going on to get that to work, and the smart access memory is really fascinating. We haven't been detailed a whole lot about this. All we know is that it's a way for the CPU to address the memory inside the graphics processor, the GPU rather. So you've got 16 gigs of graphics memory that the Ryzen 5000 series can access directly, essentially, through the PCI 4.0 bus. But they haven't really told us much about how it actually does this, what the real impact is, and in what kind of usage scenarios that it's going to be a positive. Now, I guess the graphics memory aperture that has been there for ages for like the CPU is like 250 megs, 256 megabyte.
256, yep. That's the PCIe bus window of opportunity of memory addressable block. So this gets around that because they control the platform and the CPU.
Yeah. So, I mean, you have to enable this in the BIOS. You boot it up. It's transparent for the application and the OS, but I'm pretty sure that the driver has a whole lot to do with moving memory around and how it accesses it.
And the addressability from the CPU, my guess it's only to main memory on the card. And again, this is rumor. Well, they said it's going to be 500
they got some strange
series.
OEC thing with the. It's basically how the CPUs communicate with each other and how they write to each other's caches. All of that stuff, and of course, I used to know this like the back of my hand, but then I got old and I forget everything. So anyway, it's a cache coherency concept, and we don't know if that is implemented with this. And I even hesitate to think about or even saying, it's definitely this, because cache coherency between a GPU and a CPU has been problematic in the past. So I don't know if that's the case.
They can't exchange semaphores fast enough. It doesn't necessarily make sense.
Well, they send pigeons with
very fast pigeons.
Carrier signal pigeons.
Basically the support for the SAM thing is they said 500 series, maybe 550. They definitely said 570 required. So, not even all AMD, 5000 CPUs need apply if you're not on the right board platform either.
Yeah, if it's a 400 series and below, it's not going to probably do it. And again, the 3000 series of Ryzen processors do not support it. So it's going to be very interesting when you benchmark Intel platform, Ryzen 3000 series platform, and then Ryzen 5000. So this is going to make Sebastian's testing really interesting.
Yeah. Don't you mean Josh's testing? Think about it.
Think about the future.
Yeah, exactly.
I mean, if you want the review next year, then sure.
Josh, that's not too long away. Careful.
This is true.
Yeah.
Yeah, 2021. It's going to be worse than 2020.
Plus, it takes me a while to edit videos, as Josh knows very well.
Yeah.
Hey, have you looked at the performance numbers that AMD showed? Because of course, you take these with a grain of salt, but still interesting to see.
Did you notice which CPU they used, Sebastian?
Oh, wait, but did you notice the up to at the top of the
There's a
all
whole
the
bunch.
slides?
There's a lot
there's-
going on with these charts, by
Yeah.
the way.
Let's break it down.
Let's break it down a little bit. I haven't even gone into the.
But first, I just
disclosures.
wanted to point out for all of those people that
Yes.
yelled at you previously, AMD for all of these tests chose to use the 5900 XT, not the 5950,
I saw that, yeah.
which you took a bit of flack for occasionally, Sebastian.
Oh, because my
So there you go.
3900X. Yeah,
Yeah.
it was the right choice, and I stand by it. Obviously,
was.
I knew all along. I knew nothing. Okay, putting it all together, as they say.
Feel.
Let's look at this chart here. This is the first performance chart I added. There's a whole bunch in the slide deck, but 6800 XT. This is with SAM, Smart Access Memory, and Rage Mode enabled, which is overclocking. And we're talking some wins here for AMD, especially with Rage Mode over a 3080.
Rage is only adding 1 to 2%, and it's really only sort of one-click adjusting the power availability. And of course, due to CPU boost, quote unquote, it clocks follow power availability. So, it's a secondary effect of increasing the power limits. But that's what Rage Mode is. It's increasing
And
the
if
power
you
limits.
So it's just a power
manually
limit increase. That
overclock,
makes
it's
Correct.
going to be totally different.
Well, that's, your mileage may vary.
What's interesting about that is the amount of power, because if on all of these slides they're focused on Rage Mode, which they especially did with Big Navi, which we'll look at that slide next.
Yeah, we have no
showing-
idea what that board boosts up to because they're
Right.
saying, okay, it's a 300
Right.
watt board power,
Right.
but that's without Rage Mode.
Right. That's without Beat NVIDIA mode. But with Beat NVIDIA mode, it's pulling, X, like 380 watts. Who knows? We don't know yet. Maybe it's only 320.
This is
But-
why we need third-party review
Right.
results.
Yeah.
Desperately.
But look at the other thing here. I would never get away with this. No one would get away with this in the industry. It says under where is it here? Frames per second.
Frames
at-
per second at 4K up to. So that's max frames per second, not average, not 95%, not 99%, not minimum.
Yeah.
Yeah, I don't know which percentile they're looking at. I reached out to them. I'm waiting for an answer. We can clarify in the article when they get back to us, but that's interesting. I don't think I've ever seen that myself, where they're potentially showing max frame. But if they are they showing max frame rate for the 3080 as well? In which case, I guess it's still a fair comparison. Or does their boost, does their Infinity Cache give them that edge in max frame rate? Think about it.
But they could totally
that-
suffer in mins and averages. So
Yes.
not to throw
attributed-
water on everybody's parade.
They attributed
But
that cache
we've-
to... Oh, go ahead.
I was going to say we've seen this unfortunately previously before in AMD cards where they wobbled. Was sort of the best way to do it back when we were doing the frame rating. We found that absolutely you would definitely produce the highest frames per second, but there's a problem in that you would wobble around so much that tearing became ridiculously insane. And I don't care how good your adaptive sync monitor is, if we get back to that sort of thing, and I have no reason to think that we do. I don't think that's something we're ever going to see again, knock on wood, hopefully, that by putting it up that high and saying that, this is our absolute max, it's like, well, yeah, but what's your 99th percentile? What
Exactly.
do you usually
What's
see?
your 1% lows? Yeah.
I have a theory.
Yeah.
What if up to is just if they manually set the GPU clocks up to their max? So what if this is just clock dependent? And yes, it is an average, but it's an average if it was at 2250 all the time, that kind of a thing.
The one other way to read it is, what if it's just a CYA to say, hey, you know what, your experience might be different.
Right, which again would be like thermal and power constraints there.
Yeah.
Another thing that was interesting about
Exactly.
these is that they used best API for all of these charts.
Yeah, what does
Which-
that exactly mean? Do you
It means the
think?
best API
might-
for each game for each card. So it might be Vulkan, it might be DX12, it might be DX11, but we're not necessarily looking at DX12 versus DX12 in these. We're looking at in the AMD card we used Vulkan, And on the NVIDIA card, we use TX12, that kind of a thing. And it's all in the disclosure.
Best case scenario versus worst case scenario.
Possibly.
It's not new.
We haven't done our own testing yet, so we don't know. And I guess this isn't really an analysis of their charting, but it's just kind of interesting that they're doing what could potentially be either misleading graphs or very, very like tiny
optimistic.
Yeah.
Can't we just say subject really... to interpretation?
But hey, the elephant in the room here is the Big Navi. It's finally here. We've been talking about Big Navi for years, and it's called the 6900 XT, and it apparently can trade blows with a 3090 for $500 less.
Yeah.
That's pretty significant. And there might be better availability of the 6900 XT when it actually releases. Might be. But I was talking to an acquaintance of mine who works for a card company, and they said component shortages are so bad across the entire industry, nobody can keep up with supply or demand.
Yeah.
And
that's the key
think
point.
That AMD will have better number of cards out probably, but I still don't think that we're going to see significant numbers where the average person can just go online anytime they want and buy a card. That's not going to happen until 2021. I could be wrong, and I hope to be wrong for all of your sakes and your wallets.
Josh, this is the point of the show where I need to say something complimentary about Apple. It's in my contract. Apple moved away from TSMC's 7 nanometer, freeing up capacity for the rest of the world, moving to the 5 nanometer process, moving to a slightly more advanced node, freeing up 5 nanometer for the rest of the world to get at. NVIDIA that's a little nice, bit, but maybe a little Radeon in there. So there might be capacity for AMD. Thanks to Apple.
That's not the only component that people are talking about.
No,
I know.
And that's where the issue
But it's in my contract. I need to say something complimentary about Apple every time.
Okay.
So, yeah, it's out of the way now.
And Josh, in a way, I do hope you're right, because the amount of things we're not expecting to get normal-ish until 2022, that list is steadily growing and does include stuff like manufacturing of tiny components that we all don't really necessarily know about, but absolutely love because they make our stuff work.
Yeah.
There's more to talk about with this. I mean, we could go into the super resolution thing, which obviously is not the same as DLSS because that's not AI. It's
not tensor core based.
Yeah, it's just scaling and sharpening. And then their ray tracing support is DX12 Ultimate, so it's not. It says hardware ray tracing accelerated. I still would like clarification on this. Like, is this just you're allocating a certain number of your shader cores to do it? But I guess I don't fully understand the architecture yet.
Yeah. Nobody knows. Well, I mean, there's some people who dug into patents, and there seems like there is a hardware component to path tracing. Yeah. But it's in a different place in the rendering pipeline than what NVIDIA has with RTX. And there are people arguing is like, oh, this could be, a lot better the way how it leverages other parts of the GPU, and others are like, this is kind of like RTX 1/2. We don't know exactly where it stands because they have not had an editor's day where we've done deep dives into the architecture, and that's really disappointing. AMD used to be great at a lot of that stuff, and now we're not going to pre-sample anybody. We're not going to do anything. I mean, NVIDIA has done kind of the same thing. Maybe a little bit better, especially with editors' days. But it's like they want to avoid leaks altogether. And so they're going to do this 30-minute presentation that's not terribly technical, but it's got lots of technical terms in there. But we don't understand the basis of how it's doing what it's doing. What are the capabilities? I mean, we have, these frames per second stuff. But yeah, that's all I know.
Yeah. No, I remember the old AMD tech days. Those guys would spill just about everything.
We had that last year.
And tell you not to use thermal
E3.
paste, but...
And we had breakout sessions with different people. They used to be,
true. Okay. We'll give them that.
I mean, it's a little bit of a different year for whatever reason. What else was on here? Variable rate shading, Fidelity FX, direct storage. There's a lot
Honking
to
amount of
unpack.
GDDR6.
Yeah, I'm very curious about that cache, like how it's going to behave with regard to smoothness. Like, is it going to cause any kind of stuttering or anything?
Well, and I hate to be the one, but how well implemented is it with one single set of processors that have had fairly limited availability, so they haven't really been able to test it on the ridiculously large ecosystem that exists nowadays. I mean, it's not like the old days where you could do 6 months of testing and cover about 80% of the usage cases. Nowadays, God knows what people have shoved in their cases. So, are there going to be growing pains like with the first gen Threadripper that I'm doing this on right now? Or is it going to be nice and smooth, and this is actually something I've been looking at for a while and have finally been able to implement it? There's so many questions.
So many questions, and we'll have answers later on. But anybody else have any more thoughts on this before we move on from Radeon?
They do have hardware ray tracing acceleration.
That's what it says. Josh is muted.
Yeah.
I think.
Oh, yeah, I was muted, and so I thought Brett was just being rude to me again.
No. Oh my gosh.
I know. So anyway, the prices are interesting. For the 6800, it's what, 574, 579? And
579,
then,
you are correct.
579.
The 6800 XT is 6800 XT is 649, so $50 less than the base 3080, and then $999 for the 6900 XT, which they claim is very performance compatible with the 3090, which is $1,500. I think the 6800 to 6800 XT is a strange number. Only $75 between those two. I mean, if you were to buy it, you might as well just get the 6800 XT. I think the 6800 is a little bit overpriced for what you get, and especially, just because you can get quite a bit more for not a whole lot of money when you're dealing in that kind of price range.
And there's no
Other
extra
than
code names left over for something in between the 6800 XT and the 6900 XT.
Yes,
maybe
there
a
is.
G.
Add an
XT
X.
was the
the XTX.
Yeah, bring it
Yes.
back.
Or a 5.0. They're not above that. 3950.
Oh, wait, we're talking NVIDIA product names or AMD product names?
Oh,
No, AMD.
And I was going specifically AMD.
Yeah.
Because,
Yeah,
I mean,
the
NVIDIA
six-
has like GT, GTS, GTX, TI.
Super.
Like, they've got... And then they've added Super. So they've got like a half dozen names to toss on a certain model number. And, increment them by $20 if they feel like it. The pricing feels odd. I agree with Josh. Like, if the 6800 XT comes close to the 3800 or the 3080, which honestly I expect they will, even if you shave 10% off the performance numbers that AMD is presenting to you, it's still bloody close, and it's undercutting it by just a little hair, but not by a fair amount, which is nice. I could understand that making sense if the 6800 was significantly cheaper, because then,
if they were to do a 525, 524 for the 6800, it's going to be faster than the 3070. It's only going to be $25 more than 3070. It's got double the memory, the 3070. And then you've got a much larger span in between that and the 6800 XT. That's understandable.
Which would then
that
make
extra
sense.
$50. Yeah, that extra $50 kind of is weird.
Well, potentially all the new Ryzen owners, especially on those on 500 series boards, are going to be like, why would I buy an NVIDIA card when I'm going to lose out on this memory access, this SAM feator? I'm going to get a Radeon. So yeah, makes sense.
Well, yeah, but I bought the Intel 10897 12KS, and
That wasn't a
now it
good
doesn't work.
buy. No, that
The
probably wasn't a good buy.
10850K is not bad. It's not bad.
No, it's not.
If you can,
I still hate
if
the
you can
names,
find a
but it's-
10900K, that's not good. not good at
Well,
all.
not
Especially
not in
Well-
the light of what we know is coming. I mean,
No,
it was good.
no.
I mean, I'm not trying to say that it never had a place and that it was no
10900K
good.
for 549 is not bad. It's just
It's
and the
not
10850K is what 489, 485 on Newegg. It's not bad. I mean, but if you're comparing it to AMD, you can get 12 cores for less money when you go and buy a 3900X. So
Well, and what I just said, in light of, hey, if you're going to deploy that on a 500 series board, you're probably going to be getting or wanting an AMD card to take advantage of that extra performance. It's latent.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, but but
I
wait
need to see
until
it
we
run.
actually benchmark it because
True. Oh, true. Very
it's
true.
neat.
Yep.
It's neat. That's a great technology, and that is a great platform level technology to really leverage performance across something that you can control. And
Yeah,
that's really smart. And
Yeah.
that's a
And
good
speaking of
design
platforms,
thing.
do you think do you think this is part of what we're seeing behind the scenes in the Xbox and the PlayStation that they have been cagey about? You know, is it possible that they're actually trying to do this, the Infinity Cache or the Smart Access behind the scenes?
Probably. It wouldn't shock me just because it is such a closed system and they can go up to the guys. I mean, they've already got the direct storage on the Xbox. They've got direct storage with the new 6900 series.
Mm-hmm.
And plus, 4K 120 frame. Yeah, 120 frames per second on quite a few things. I mean, they're obviously doing a lot more stuff at the system level to make it more efficient in the platform level. And of course, it's just one giant SoC. So there are tricks that they can do. And I wouldn't doubt one bit that the system level kind of, memory access is implemented with the next generation console stuff.
Which means that if they've cut their teeth on it already on the console level, maybe there's a little bit more maturity behind this platform that we're waiting to see than
I
you
don't
might
know
expect.
about that, but
Yeah, it's pure speculation. But
that's what
fun.
we're here for.
yes. Oh, and let's take a short break right here for something else. Brett, I believe we have a podcast sponsor this week.
We do. We thanks to TextExpander this week for sponsoring the podcast. Their deal is speeding up everything you type with powerful shortcuts and abbreviations. So we'll put a good word in for them here. Take back your time with the power of TextExpander. Repetitive typing, little mistakes, searching for answers, they're all taking precious time away from you and your team. With TextExpander, you can take it back. The latest version of TextExpander has new and improved statistics reporting for organizations, including the ability to build reports with customizable date ranges for enterprise and individual users, so you can track how much time your team is saving. With TextExpander, you can keep your team consistent, accurate, and current. Everyone will share the same message and give the same answers to all customer inquiries. Share your text and images with the whole staff to keep them on track. Work faster and smarter, such as being able to more quickly onboard new employees. Use TextExpander's powerful shortcuts and abbreviations to streamline and speed up everything you type. Create powerful snippets to save you time so that all you do is type a short abbreviation and TextExpander does the rest of the typing for you. Keep your whole team communicating efficiently and with consistent language. This can be a concern with more well-developed sales staff where they have been working with the same people, customers, and products for a long period of time. Share your snippets of messaging, signatures, and descriptions with everyone who works on projects with you. TextExpander is available on Mac, Windows, Chrome, iPhone, and iPad. Show listeners get 20% off their first year. Visit textexpander.com/podcast to learn more about TextExpander. Well, thanks for the sponsors. And you know what? While we've been podcasting here, a couple of Patreon comments have come in. One person has changed their name back to Darth Melvintano.
Yes, that's a classic.
Yes. So there's a nice recall on that. And he has increased his Patreon. So thanks very much for that. And a new Patreon member has just come in, Corey Brown. So welcome and thank you.
How now, Corey Brown? It's
How now, Corey
$10,
Brown?
so I can give him a personalized message, right?
Yes.
They haven't quite reached
And
that
we
level,
will
but
not pull the football away.
now that they know
Promise.
that level is there, maybe people will attain it.
Well,
They
the
do
funny thing
everything
about
horribly.
Xilinx is that NVIDIA's Mellanox utilizes Xilinx technology
Oh, yeah.
in their DPUs. FPGAs are used in a lot of stuff, and I think that this probably is a merger that is honestly good for both of them.
Yeah.
Because we're just going to see a confluence of a lot of these technologies. And I think that one area that Xilinx, and I hope it's Xilinx and not Xilinx, or I don't know, Xilinx, whatever.
Exalinxa.
Xlinx X.
Yes.
Yeah. But anyway, I think that they are a little bit farther along in terms of machine learning, especially in the software side, than AMD is. And so that's another positive thing. The company itself makes about $3 billion in revenue a year. And so when you add that to what AMD does, which is about $8 billion, going to be a little bit more this year, it's approaching 11, 12 billion dollars a year. And that's a significantly sized company. Dr. Lisa, she's going to be the combined leader, the ex guy of Xilinx. He's going to be like, he's going to still be in charge of his group. So yeah, it's it's a monumental kind of shift. It's what, 35 or 38 billion dollars, and it's all going to be stocks. So Xilinx owners are going to get X amount of AMD stocks. And it's kind of a cash-free event, but in ways, this merger is a lot more. It really is synergistic because they don't overlap in many spaces, but it opens up a lot of possibilities for each company. So, I mean, who knows? Maybe soon we'll have x86 processors with FPGAs built in that can do all kinds of things, like configure itself as a DSP and do true audio 3.0. I don't know. But yeah,
and if AMD's stock keeps going up, they did very well.
Well, their stock
Xilinx
has taken a
guys.
drop.
Yeah.
The stock has taken a drop, but
everything's
don't
taking a
think
drop today, kind of.
That free fall's not going to last. So,
Mm-mm.
What do you guys think?
I think it's smart. FPGAs are in freaking everything, like you said. They're not incredibly onerous to create. I mean, there's a huge amount of design in them, but when you're comparing it to the several billion transistors in the Ryzen 5000 series, it's relatively a piece of cake next to that. And they're going to find everyone's going to be their customer for this sort of stuff, and doing it without a huge chunk out of their bankroll, which is something AMD doesn't really have to spare. It's a really smart move. Once again, Dr. Su has, spotted something and managed to make it work. At least it looks like it. Hopefully it's actually true.
AMD announced their quarterly results for the third quarter, and they made $2.8 billion. It is a record quarter for them. They have never achieved that kind of revenue ever in their entire lifespan, 50 plus years of AMD. Nothing even close to this. I think it was like 2.3 billion. And, I think last quarter was the other record. And before that, it was like 2004, 2005. So they made some money. And not only did they make some money, but they actually made some money. So their gross was around 500 million, which is massive for AMD. Their long-term debt is incredibly small right now. It's like 300 to 400 million dollars. That's it. That's not much debt at all for a company of this size, and especially when you compare it to Intel.
Of earning, right?
Yeah,
It's something
like
quarter
that.
earning.
Yeah, but Intel has something like $35 billion of long-term debt. And I mean, granted, Intel is a much larger company, and they're the amount of what their share price and how many shares are out there, their market cap is still higher, and their quarterly earnings are still very, very, very much eclipsing what AMD does. But the things that were interesting is the enterprise and semi-custom blew out of the water. And there were two things, obviously, that one, semi-custom, you've got the two consoles coming out and they're ramping up their production, and AMD is getting a lot of revenue. So that actually kind of gave their gross margin overall a hit, even though their gross margin attained at 44% from last quarter. The amount of semi-custom stuff, I mean, the margins on that are much smaller. However, to offset that, AMD has like doubled their amount of money coming from EPYC. And we saw last week when Intel released their quarterly financials that they had weakness in the data center that took their margins from 49% in the data center down to 32%, a 17% margin drop. And what is a giant moneymaker for Intel kind of showed us. And they said, well, it was, weakness in government and all kinds of other things, data centers. And then a week later, AMD comes out. It's like, oh, yeah, by the way, our data center grew dramatically. It doubled from last year.
Epically.
Yes, It was epically. So, I mean, there is probably going to be some truth there that there were less overall orders market-wide, but AMD was able to grow their market share against that. So this was a big thing for EPYC. And I know for my little company that I worked for in the day, we bought our first EPYC-based server. And, I remember telling a story, I think last year, about how my boss went to a Dell conference. And this is when Xeon servers were like 17 to 24 weeks out. If you ordered one, you would expect to get one in that time. And so they had this meeting and they had all these, customers come in somewhere in Oklahoma. They took them to a basketball game, stuff like that. But they're saying, hey, are you guys interested? If you want servers right away, we've got EPYC servers and we can ship them today. And there were groans throughout the meeting room of like, oh, AMD.
Really?
No, I'm not going to do that. This was almost 2 years ago. 2 years ago. This is the first generation of EPYC was still there. And now all those groaning people are buying them because they're available. They have better performance. They have more threads. They've got better overall kind of technology. Dell has implemented all of their usual management stuff as well onto the AMD platform. And they're selling for 2/3 of the price of the Intel comparable CPUs. So it's kind of a no-brainer right now to buy EPYC, and a lot of people have. And also going back, AMD Ryzen sales, 3000 series continue to be strong. Their graphics still took some hits because, of course, we'll be talking about it very, very shortly. Their 5000 series has not been popular, and we've just experienced the people trying to save up for NVIDIA's 3080s, 3090s, and 3070s. So they probably haven't been really purchasing graphics processors over the last quarter. And even though they can't deliver the parts, people are still saving up and they're not buying the AMD 5000 series. And especially because they've now introduced the 6000 series. Anything else on the quarterly earnings that was interesting to you guys?
I did a little dance.
We talked about it. It's good news.
Jeremy, you posted a story about Ryzen and RTX living in perfect harmony inside the new Zephyrus G14 gaming laptop.
It is absolutely true. And it's living in a very pretty body as well. It's a very nice, all sort of silverish white shell on all of the models, which you don't see so much outside of Asus. But this is something we've been wanting to see for a very long time. The ability to walk into a store and say, I would like an AMD powered laptop, please. And for them not to try and either kick you out or just stare shocked at you. So what this is the Zephyrus Z14 family, which has two different base models. The best way to just differentiate the two models is the graphics card. In one case, you go with a GTX 1660 Ti. In the second, it's got an RTX 2060. But in each case, you've got a choice between a Ryzen 9 4900HS or a 7 4800HS, which, is they're brilliant processors. They're not ridiculously priced. They're going to be, wonderful in a laptop. And they didn't play around and make it so that, okay, it's an AMD processor in the laptop, so we're going to make it as cheap as we possibly freaking can. No. For the vast majority of them, 24 gigs of RAM, DDR4 3200. It tends to be more stable. You might be able to get it up to 3600, but 3200 is sort of where the stability goes. You can pick either a 1 terabyte or 512 gigabyte Samsung NVMe drive, and in some cases it'll add a secondary spinning Rust drive for you. So you've got this beautiful piece of hardware inside of this, and the one sort of drawback, and again, it goes to the form factor and what you can actually manage in there. If you want adaptive sync, if you want 120 hertz screen, you're going to have to go with the matte 180p screen. If you can live with your laptop screen being 60 hertz, you can have 1440p, which is rather nice. And because you're probably, if you're seriously gaming, pushing this out onto a proper display with that 2060 and the 4900HS, you've got the power to be able to do it. No problems whatsoever. It's also, as Sebastian is showing here, got the anime matrix array on the back. Now, this is reminiscent of high school when you could, put basic text and images onto a scrolling screen.
Jeremy, is this a gimmick? Would you call this a gimmick?
I mean, yes.
Okay.
But that's just me. And to be honest, it looks a hell of a lot better than a apple with a bite out of it. Doesn't it, Greg?
Oh, I can't say yes.
Yeah, I know. So the one thing, and when Tweaktown was doing the review, because you've got all of this bloody power stuck into, which is a relatively small form factor, you're going to hit thermal maximums. Obviously, it's going to start coming down, and it's going to, your performance is going to start good and start degrading. Well, they tested it as every condition they could, and it did not happen. Asus has figured out how to properly provide cooling to this, so that you don't actually have to worry about it. And they didn't mention that in the review, that you could make a graphics equalizer on the back. That makes it almost worse in a way. But it's pretty. It's AMD powered. It's not crippled on the GPU. It doesn't have thermal cap limitations. It starts at about $1,400, $1,500. But for a gaming laptop of this, in a 14-incher, that is relatively good pricing. You can't complain about that if you're shopping for a gaming laptop.
It's good to see that these products are out there, and yeah, that materially contributed to AMD's bottom line this quarter because they had actual significant mobile shipments.
From top brands, Dell, HP, Asus. Yeah.
I just recommended an Acer to a friend, which is Ryzen based, the 4600, but she doesn't need more than that. And it's nice to be able to do this again.
NVIDIA Reflex technology, Jeremy. What is it?
Oh, I thought that was Reflex.
Wait. Is it? Yeah, I was going to say, are we throwing more stuff up on the screen?
We are. Yeah. Sync your mouse monitor and the game engine. It's low latency technology.
NVIDIA's less understood new feature.
Yeah, it's harder to
Yes.
test. You have to have special. I don't know if you have to have
Well-
their special latency hardware or if you need.
This hardware,
No,
Jeremy,
not only if you
is
want.
yeah. Go ahead.
Continue, Brett. It
No,
sounds
it was just an
important.
observation that it was just this hardware allows you to get that feedback to see it on the screen,
Yes.
so that the monitor will actually show you your latency and the mouse will actually communicate with the proper signal to the monitor so you can see what's going on. So, but you don't necessarily need it, but it does give you the feedback in real time.
Because the Reflex latency analyzer is the overlay for the GeForce experience, which will give you an exact idea of what the millisecond latency is that you're getting between you clicking the mouse and the bullet flying out of the barrel of the gun. Because honestly, it's for Twitch games, so you don't necessarily need the Reflex compatible monitor and mouse, and you don't honestly even need a new GeForce card because anything from GeForce 900 onwards is going to be able to make use of this. But the idea is that there is obviously some inherent latency between the point that you hit the mouse is pulling rate, even if it's 1,000 megahertz, hitting the computer or hitting the input, going up, getting translated, hitting the video card, coming up and out to your monitor. And for some people, the fact that that's upwards of 15 or 20 milliseconds is upsetting to them because they're playing at 680 by 480 on an extremely high refresh rate monitor with all the settings set to low so that they can squeak out that little extra couple of $1 million by playing a competitive Counter-Strike. So
Right. Because that's what games is all about. It's about low resolution, high refresh rate, right?
This is what I thought it was about. So as I'm reading this review, one of the first things that they're pointing out is, if that's you, this shit ain't for you. Honestly, you've already got it set so that the latency is lower than we can possibly do it for you. This is for the casual gamer who suddenly switched to a 1440 or a 4K monitor and realized that it feels a wee little bit spongy. It's like I swear that I'm clicking and my ancient brain is almost registering that the muzzle flash is noticeably after I'm clicking my button. So it's very simple to set up, and the idea is that if you're not running the best hardware that you could have to be running a high resolution kit, this will actually mitigate some of the lag that you're getting from that poor overworked GPU trying to display at these high resolutions. All of a sudden it went from this is silliness and why am I having an overlay to tell me that maybe it was 50 milliseconds. The fact that I clicked a second too late might have had something to do with it. This is actually more for someone that's a little bit less professional, a little more casual, and has upgraded some of their stuff, but not everything, and is starting to get a little bit frustrated because it just doesn't feel right. So I haven't had my hands on it yet. Not very many people have. I mean, there's a handful of monitors that will support it, and that is part of it, is that you do need the monitor which is compatible to get the full effect of it, because it's measuring the light that's coming out of where the muzzle would be in the gun on the monitor, and comparing that to the input to realize, okay, we need to adjust this and that and the other thing. So even without having it, I displayed on the screen, it might actually be a reasonable sort of a feature to add to a card for someone that isn't going out and buying a 3090 or a 6950, or sorry, I've even forgotten what that card was called, 6900 XT, but have bought a fancy new monitor or playing on a TV, which might be 4K, but is, famous for having incredibly high latency. So before you toss this one out completely, it might be worth looking into.
And just a warning, if you're sensitive to bright colors, we have a disturbing image to show you from the developers of Cyberpunk 2077. who have delayed the game again.
Do.
What?
giant
After
yellow
slashing
tweet.
all of that content
I think that was...
and then forcing all of their workers to work overtime that they promised they would never do.
Wait,
and
Didn't this release 10 months ago? What was it? I maybe I missed it.
What, the delay? The game?
Yeah, wasn't it supposed to release like in May or April or something of this year?
It's been pushed back a bit.
yeah, back
Well,
in the day.
Yeah, I mean...
Pre-orders in April of 2019, I think.
Yes.
Money.
Yeah, pre-orders
well
were
spent.
definitely a year ago.
More than
Friends,
a year ago.
don't let friends pre-order.
We're very sorry though.
The bad thing about this is what if they get into a Duke Nukem Forever situation with this, and it gets delayed and delayed and delayed, and when it finally comes out, it's outdated and disappointing.
I don't know.
Oh,
it
I
was
thought that's what we were
pretty.
expecting.
This was a very aggressive and forward-looking game from everything that I understood about it. And so if they aren't able to hit it and even delay 9 months, it's still going to be kind of a cutting-edge experience from what I've heard. But of course, yeah, it could just be Duke Nukem Forever Part D,
Yeah.
whichever one that was. I can't remember.
But I'm not sure that the people who were really into Duke Nukem or waiting for it sent like death threat tweets or something. This has just resulted in a lot of people getting really tweaked.
Physical fertilizer being sent to the developers.
It was a different
No.
time, Brett. This current generation of gamers, younger gamers, they're new on the scene and they're very emotional sometimes.
Okay. All right. So
Plus, we
should
didn't
We've
have
hit the
Twitter.
point where trying to release a Cyberpunk based game is now more or less a curse. Not quite Duke Nukem level. I mean, we're not talking decades here, but either the couple of past ones have been either delayed, died, or dog doo-doo.
Modern
haven't we
London Watch Dogs is going to be on time, right?
Yeah, but haven't we kind
But
of
that
been
one was
numb to all
crowdsourced.
this? Am I not muted, Jeremy?
That's why I'm
Can
talking.
I talk
if you're
now?
muted, I wouldn't talk. Yes.
Haven't we kind of been, abused enough by Star Citizen? That's been 7+ years, 2013 when it first was promised, and I mean that's kind of the benchmark. That's the ultimate grift. Is just keep sending us your money and we will get you a somewhat finished product that you can kind of alpha test for us.
What kind of
True. It was a
benchmark, though? Is
It was
like,
a Kickstarter.
not the good kind of benchmark.
But they've made something like 150 to 200 million dollars.
Oh yeah, why even release at this
Right.
point? Just keep developing it forever.
Just keep
Well,
milking.
and every
Milking.
week or two, or sorry, once or twice a week, we get an email from them talking about the new ship and the new features that are going to be appearing in the soon-to-be-released Star Citizen. I believe recently we were just asked to vote on which was the best ship that we've never been able to fly yet.
Ouch.
Why isn't it out?
Yeah.
Like, why don't they just call whatever it is done and just say, you know what, this is the game. It's done.
Do you remember who's developing it?
Chris Roberts.
Yeah.
Is that? But you know what? Dungeon Siege was so good. So good.
Hey, you know what else?
He's
is
done a
so
lot of
good?
good games, but
Yeah.
he's a bit of a perfectionist sometimes.
What about what?
He's
what
not
else,
like
Sebastian?
Derek
I forget.
Smart, but
It's a name I haven't heard since.
early 2000s.
Yeah. Battle what? 2000? Battle
Carrier, Battle Cruiser. I have it.
Battle Cruiser.
The reason I remember this
Battle
is because I was
Cruiser
cleaning
2000.
something up and I had Battle Cruiser 2000. I'm like, oh my god, yes. The game where each and every single meteor and asteroid has its own separate AI.
Anyway.
Hey, did you know that NVIDIA released a graphics card as well? Well, they're releasing it. I think if you're listening to this live, it's not yet available. I think
It's already
it goes on
sold out.
sale. on the 29th.
Oh, it might not be.
It's not sold out
Maybe.
yet.
It's going to be... Newegg sent out a tweet that said, we have much more product available, but it will still be sold out in minutes.
Ooh.
So 6 a.m. Pacific time, get into Newegg and your other favorite guys, go line up at Micro Center. Micro Center should have a lot more product available, so if you actually line up, you may get one.
Yeah.
There are only
might
like
not.
20 micro centers around the U.S., something like that, 25. Yeah.
Of course, we're talking
Yeah,
about the
closest is
RTX
Denver.
3070 Founders Edition. Add-in boards are next, but the Founders Edition was the first one released, or at least the embargo was up for this one first. And it's a lot less expensive than the 3080. It's $499. It's smaller. It has a little bit more of a conventional appearance with 2 fans on the front instead of one on the front, one in the back. Different GPU at the core of it, but I have to say, it is an absolutely beautiful looking card. I love the way this Founders Edition card looks. I think it's even better looking
Until you
than
put the power cord in.
3080. Yeah, that's a contentious subject,
It looks
Jeremy.
It looks
the-
funny
the
as soon
size
as the
of it-
power is plugged in.
The size of it looks great for small form factor builds,
Yes,
too.
I think it'll
True.
be the size. And
Yes.
there'll be smaller ones than this. I'm sure there'll be those compact, because the 2070 had really compact GPUs from certain companies. Like Asus had the smallest 2070. But anyway, quickly looking at the specs, it's GA104. The 3080 was GA102. It's a lot smaller. It's 392 millimeters squared, I believe. It's on this chart. Yes, 392 versus 628 millimeters squared with the big chip. So, and it's 100 watts lower TGP. We go down from 320 with the 3080 to 220 with the 3070. So that's significant. It's also significantly less memory bandwidth, though. We're all the way back to the 2080 here with memory interface and bandwidth. Like we're 8 gigabytes of GDDR6, 14 gigabit per second, 256-bit bus for 448 gigabytes per second bandwidth. That is it. That's the same as the 2080. So
Have they told us how much L2 cache is on that chip?
I would have to look it up. The cache, I think, is in the documents for it. The architectural info.
They're being cagey about it.
Yeah, well, that is certainly something that will help with lower bandwidth main memory. So, yeah, just like AMD with their 128 megabytes of infinity cache.
Yeah. Hey, no infinity cache here. We
No.
are just GDDR6, and I have to say, like, the performance of this card is going to be memory bandwidth constrained, all other things being equal. So they've left the door wide open for a GDDR6 version of this, like a TI or a Super with the faster memory bus. But
I mean 6X, right?
yeah, did I say 5?
Yeah.
I don't know.
You said 6. You said 6, not 6X.
Yeah, no, this is 6X.
Yeah, 6X would be
6X.
Obviously the upgrade here, but. Quickly looking over at the card, we'll look at Jeremy's comment here. As you can see, actually still has, if you're watching the video, if you're listening to audio, this doesn't make any sense to you. We're looking at the front of the card with its 2 fans. And on the back, the right-hand side is just a pass-through heatsink. Kind of like on
A
the
speaker grill.
3080. Yeah, it kind of looks like a speaker grill. It looks like a transistor radio from Sony from the 1980s, perhaps, with a speaker on the right-hand side.
And
Please don't press
physically,
play on the golden fingers.
The fans are actually separated from each other, and the one nearest the ports actually exhausts straight out the back, like a typical blower card.
Yes. Very similar to what we saw with the 3080, only maybe even a little bit better focused this time. And the power connector is going to be... It already wasn't popular, and then when you find out what the actual power requirements of this card are, and that they could have simply put... And look, the opening here, if you're watching the video, the opening exists for a standard 8-pin, but they put a 12-pin compact anyway. And
Hey,
it
they're
has
trying
to be
they're trying to
adaptive.
butter up those power supply guys. Start doing the 12-pin because we've got so many more models out there. How come you didn't take a picture of the adapter sticking
The
out of there
adapter?
by itself? Yeah, because
Everybody likes to do that now. I did not choose to do
yeah,
that.
because
It
you know what? It
looks
looks
so-
like your card is happy to see you.
Yeah,
Yeah.
not into that look. Trying to keep the photos at least. Maybe the review itself isn't all that sophisticated, but I try to take very sophisticated, dramatic looking photos.
It's true.
So,
You do a good job of it.
Well,
do.
if I scroll all the way past it, let's just forget about the benchmarks. Forget about it. Let's just go.
Oh,
wait,
stop.
wait. Let's look. We'll look at the
You missed a
benchmarks in a
picture.
second. But look,
Okay.
this is the
Up,
adapter.
There it is. There it is.
A single 8-pin to a 12-pin compact. I mean, you
So-
didn't
Hey,
need
so
to
explain
do
to me-
this.
Explain to me
It's
again.
braided for her pleasure.
And this exists why?
Right.
This is the dongle fetishist Apple fan.
No, I
Asking
think
why it
Josh has a
exists.
point. It's trying to bend the power supply suppliers to come up with a 12-pin dongle.
The 12-pin compact is NVIDIA's Lightning connector, and they're not going to let go of it. And it's just going to be on everything, and you're going to have to use like
Wait a minute.
Lightning to USB-C adapters. You know,
don't-
it's It's like a proprietary thing. Like it's
I don't understand.
Apple had the 30-pin connector that was on everything for a while. It was on every iPod, and then all the early iPhones, the iPad,
Until it wasn't.
until it wasn't. But
Just
You know
wait
what I'm
until you
saying.
see the adapter from the Dell system that's got one of these in it.
yeah, exactly. No, because they'll have a different. They won't use their Founders Edition, will they? I know they have in the
doubt
past.
it.
Some systems used reference cards from NVIDIA, but mostly they're just like the MSI blower cooler style. Performance. If we just look at TimeSpy, which was oddly prescient, like usually you think of TimeSpy, it's like it's a synthetic benchmark. If you actually crunch all the numbers from every benchmark and then look at TimeSpy and TimeSpy Extreme, it's pretty damn close. Because here at the standard 1440p resolution, which is TimeSpy, you're at a deficit. We're comparing this to the 2080 Ti because that's how NVIDIA kind of framed this during their intro.
Well, and it's faster, so obviously that's a better buy.
Well, yeah, the 20. Well, it's still. I'm not sure what you're saying. You're confusing. Oh,
The
hold on.
2080 Ti is a much better value.
No, but you're thinking, and that's dangerous. And also, I'm trying to host and switch video, and I'm losing my train of thought. But the 2080 Ti,
Success.
$1,000 to $1,200 at launch. The $1,000 version was basically like a phantom. It may have existed at one point, but it was like a $1,200 card. And now we have a 3070 that comes very close. In the first test, it's 11% slower than the 2080 Ti. Okay, 22% slower than the 2080 Founders Edition card. If we move to TimeSpy Extreme, which is the 4K test, the gap closes. Now we see a score of 6560 for the 3070 and 6946 for the 2080 Ti. So that is only 5.6% behind the 2080 Ti. And then moving on to actual games like Metro Exodus, which is a DirectX 12 game at 1440 at the high preset, 3070 Founders Edition, average 93.79 frames per second, just behind the 2080 Ti, which is at 100.03. So about just over 6 frames per second slower than the 2080 Ti. But again, for $499 instead of $1,200.
Yeah, it's not like you're going to really see this. It's
The differences are
not-
pretty small.
It's not an experience thing that you're going to be like, oh my gosh, my experience is so diminished because I'm on a 3070 versus a 2080 Ti. It's just not
As
going to
opposed to, oh my god, my bank account is so diminished because I bought the 2080 Ti.
Yeah, forget the should
Yeah,
I get a 3090 or 3080 argument. Just get a 3070.
Yeah, this is way closer.
Save your money. It's not that. I mean, it's slower than a 3080, of course, but I mean, it's almost as fast as a 2080 Ti. And in fact, in some cases, like here's Bright Memory Infinite, which is one of my new favorite benchmarks to run because I like the way it looks and it's very demanding. Here it is with 1440 resolution, RTX features turned up very high, and DLSS on the quality preset, which is the minimal amount of scaling, it's beating the 2080 Ti. It's averaging almost 48 frames per second. 1080 Ti or 2080 Ti was down at almost 44. So it's about 4 frames per second faster than a 2080 Ti. With DLSS off, this is such a tough benchmark that it's not really even playable. I mean, unless you like that cinematic 24 frames per second, which is what the 2080 Ti can manage. This one averages 26. So it is slightly faster, but still, if you have a fully path traced game like this, that is when
Control.
you're going to find... Well, yeah, I need to run Control.
Control benchmarks showed it beating the 2080 Ti pretty much across the board.
Right. The more RTX features you have enabled in a game, the more likely it is that the 3070 will be faster than the 2080 Ti, is the upshot. And I did like just an overall... I think I averaged everything out, and it was about 8% slower than a 2080 Ti overall in like raster-based 3D, and that dropped to 4% if you included all the RTX results. Just of the stuff I ran here. But it's not much. It's single-digit difference between the two. It's only faster, just like with the 3080. The 3080 was not 2x the performance of a 2080 unless you were in fully path trace stuff, which they clarified later. This is the same deal. It's more than 2x if you're fully path traced. Otherwise, it's actually a closer percentage. This is not like...
Think of the memory bandwidth difference between those two cards.
Yeah.
It's significant. It's 320-bit versus 256. It's 600 and some odd gigs per second versus 458. I mean, I'm just throwing those numbers out, but that's essentially what it is. But anyway, yeah, that's still pretty good performance. They're able to get really close with a much simpler design and a smaller chip and a more limited memory bus.
Speaking of limited memory, the fact that this only
That's
has
me.
8 gigabytes is going to be unpopular with certain people, I'm sure, because all AMD stuff has 16. This is cheaper than the 6800. So the way that AMD's pricing works out, of course, their bottom end card, at least of what's been announced so far, is the 6800 non-XT at $579. So this is $80 below that. But for $80 more, AMD could argue, you get double the memory. So
Not a bad argument.
yeah, and it depends on what you're doing with the card and whether you're doing any compute workloads or, if you're running very high resolutions and need more than 8 gigabytes of frame buffer. I feel like this is a good balance.
Even at 4K,
here.
are we hitting up against the limits? I mean, most of the stuff that I've run in benchmarking, I've seen a max of about 5.5 gigs being taken up at higher resolutions, and so it's maybe it's a little too early to say that 8 gigs is too little, just because I haven't seen it. Obviously, there are probably going to be some games, and I'm going to, mess with Watch Dogs, the next generation stuff, because that's supposedly, pretty impressive graphically. And, we'll see what kind of usage that you have there. But, I mean, like Far Cry 5 and the upcoming
What about
6,
Flight Sim,
you're
Josh?
looking at...
Oh, Flight Sim, yeah.
that one's hitting 6 to 8, I think.
Yeah.
Okay.
At the very,
Close.
very max.
Close.
The worst. At
Yeah.
the very worst. So it's it's getting up there. But most other first-person shooter games and that, Flight Sim is kind of out there, just because it's super aggressive in what they're doing. You fly around New York, and it's crazy. But otherwise, you go around the countryside, and it's easy. Yeah, you can land in the Hudson, not very well, but you can.
Well, okay. Yeah, but according to the people that rated all our comments, you are utterly and completely wrong, and every card needs at least 24 gigs of RAM at a bare minimum.
Well, absolutely, Jeremy. That's right. And it's just shameful that a card would be released in 2020 with only 8 gigabytes, because we all game at 5 to 8K. and need all that extra frame buffer. Or we're doing like crazy resolution scaling, or we're
Oh,
rendering it off
it's
screen
reverse
at 8K.
DLSS,
Yeah.
where,
What do
where
they
it's
call it?
upscaling inefficiently.
Virtual resolution. Something
You know,
virtual
if you're
resolution?
doing machine learning training and you have sets that are
Well,
19
yes.
to 24 gigs in size, yes, 8 gigs is just too little. Too little.
The bigger question
Which is
here,
why-
mining. How much does 8 gigabytes hold you back when you're jumping on the Ethereum bandwagon again?
I didn't
You're
think
not.
about that.
No.
Yeah, I mean, some of those instances. All right,
Well,
looking
your
at
poorly
power,
optimized third-party texture maps. I mean, really, where are you going with that? Where are you going to load those?
Skyrim mods?
That's what I'm talking about.
Brett, I don't want to
serious.
buy a new graphics card in 2020 and then find that I
your-
need double the VRAM in 2023.
Yeah, then Sebastian, I think you're buying AMD this time around. That's what I think. Oh my god!
Download more
thinking.
RAM.
That's the thinking right there. All right,
And Jeremy says download more RAM, which is a valid point.
and if you have a fast bus and caching, and you can like use system RAM like VRAM, it's great. That's why you need PCI Express 4.0 too. It's all coming together. All right, board power draw. I'm comparing this to the same results I pulled on the same system with the 3080. As you can see, the 3070 is not pulling anywhere near as much. It's almost exactly 100 watts below. In fact, the peak that I saw, where is it here? If I can find my mouse cursor, was 331.3 with the 3080, 226.3 with the 3070. So just a little under, like more than 100 watts less, actually. So, and then total system power draw, the old-fashioned way, measuring it from the wall, total system with that Ryzen 9 3900X, ever so slightly, not really overclock, but the faster, F-clock and DDR4 3600 and all that stuff. We're talking, okay, remember the 3080 in this test system was 462 watts from the wall. The 3070, 343 watts from the wall. That is less than a 2080 Founders Edition, which was 347. It is significantly less than a 2080 Ti, which is 380 watts from the wall in the same conditions. It's a little bit above a 5700 XT, which was 329. So it's got a 14 watt advantage there for the AMD card, but that was last year.
Think of the savings.
But it's not just the savings. It's the coolers, the size of the cards. Like, this is not anywhere near as big of a GPU chip itself, and it's a lot more efficient and still has great performance. I look at this and think, maybe it's like 8% behind a 2080 Ti, maybe 10% behind a 2080 Ti, but it pulls way less power and it costs way, way, way less. I think this is the winner. I think this is even better than the 3080.
Price to performance? No question.
Yeah.
For the bang you're getting from your buck, the 3070, when you eventually can find it for sale.
They waited those extra 2
possess
weeks from the original planned launch was going to be the 15th. Now it's the 29th. So
Yeah.
theoretically,
Which gave
they've
all
accumulated
those
some
guys-
stock.
No, they just gave people enough time to reprogram their bots to make them more efficient. And
So,
Buy them out even.
That's probably true, but depressing.
It probably is true.
the worst thing is that those bots are now running on a 3080 or a 3090,
That's
so
true.
they're even
They're
faster.
even faster.
More efficient bot networks. That's what we needed.
Great.
I don't know. I think the margins for a 3070 for the bot guys might not be worth it. So probably some of them are just going to back out. It's like, I can't make double my money. Why am I even going to bother sitting on a 3070 on eBay for a couple of weeks and only getting 10%?
Picks of the week. Josh, start us off.
Me, I'm wearing them.
Oh,
You know what? You would have to buy them from China, but they're the Tronsmart Sono headphones. They're under $30 or $31. They're lightweight. They have 50 millimeter speakers in there, so they're reasonable for the price. The nice metal construction. You can plug in the headphone, the microphone, in or out, in or out.
Out.
Makes sense.
Can we have a close up of that, please?
And it comes with the splitter because usually it's the kind of the not the three prong, but it's the 3-band that can go and have speaker as well as microphone into your cell phone. And it comes with a splitter for your PC, so you can have separate speaker and microphone.
How come you're not using the
And for,
Gamer
like-
Elite microphone on this tonight?
Because it's a $30 headset.
Wait, are you saying this is not broadcast quality audio?
And a 16-cent microphone.
Yeah, if that. But yeah, okay.
But otherwise, if you're looking for a robust, decent sounding, you may wait a few weeks for shipping. The Tron Smart Sono it's a nice product for the price.
Slow switching from me. Okay, there we go. Jeremy, you've picked some. Oh, this is Canadian money, though. I don't even know what this translates
No, it's
into.
both.
It's both. Okay, let's look. For our Canadian viewers, I'll show them.
And listeners.
Ooh, what's this? Hold on, I gotta focus on Jeremy here.
Look at this cute little thing. That's a whole terabyte on ridiculous. I don't know how they fit the Acronis CD in though. It must be folded or something.
Maybe it's one of those mini CDs, like the GameCube.
Oh,
size
I haven't
disc.
seen one of those in forever.
Yeah.
And I'm impressed.
You know, they have a tin can.
Wait,
Yeah,
can
the
you-
packaging is awesome.
Is that can that double as a cigarette case, Jeremy?
Yes, if you pull out the
yeah. No, that's actually long enough that you could
There you go.
pull that
Think
out.
about
as a
how
cigarette case.
stylish. But look, is that solid gold? No. It's aluminum, maybe.
Comes with a little protector.
No, that's actually a bookmark.
Is it a thermal pad?
No,
No, it's
rubbery.
a bookmark.
Really?
Yeah. So you
Yeah.
you
Well, it's got the
you
middle-
clip the
Yep.
Yep. How funny.
And how much will this set us back?
It'll
Let's look at
fit
the link
perfectly
here.
in the book that it came with.
Nice.
But the Sabrents, they're pretty. Look at these things.
Yes.
No, currently, and I expect this is because there's going to have a new version come out. But in Canada, you're looking at the better over 40% off. So just a hair over $200 for a 1 terabyte. The 512 is not quite as good a deal, but $220, $180 off in Canada. In the States, $150. So
that's
it's
pretty
actually
good.
less than half price. It's PCI 4.0. It's TLC. Don't buy the Sabrent Rocket Q. That's the QLC. It's cheaper, and well, it's QLC, but it's PCIe 4.0. So regardless of if I choose to upgrade to an Intel or an AMD for my next system, I don't think that PCIe 4.0 NVMe drives are going to be obsolete in the next 4 or 5 years. Hey, I could be wrong. It might not be. The sale is going to last forever. In fact, if you're listening to a recording, it might already be done. And, well, I apologize, but you should have been watching us live. It's a ridiculously good deal for this.
I like
And,
how
hey,
the sale ends
get a nice
in
tin case.
3 hours, 21 minutes, and 55 seconds.
Hey,
Yeah, hurry up.
it's not my fault that the sale started earlier this week and is ending on Wednesday. But this is one that I wanted to mention because I looked at that and I'm like, yeah, I can't really justify not buying that. Because I am slowly putting together a new system, and honestly, this Threadripper is misbehaving, so I need to reimage it. This thing means that I can throw it in there instead of that Intel QLC drive to back everything up, because I don't want to wait for the QLC drive to write everything for the backup. Reimage it, and then throw it all back from this, and then put it in storage until there's a video card I can buy and decide which processor I'm going to go with.
Well, of course it's going to be AMD, right? You got to get that 5000 series Zen 3 action in there. Get one of those 6800 cards.
I need to see the reviews, but I'm very, very tempted. This is one of the reasons I wasn't staying up super early to try and score a 3080. Was, maybe Lisa can pull it off. Dr. Sue has done some incredible things, and from what we saw today, might well be the better buy.
There's that rumor that 300,000 3080s are going to be released in the wild in November. 300,000 3080s.
5 of which will make it to Canada.
Yeah.
He said the world. He didn't say Canada.
Yeah.
Brett is next on our list. You have another sort of creator-focused pick for us this time.
It is. It's a Pixel G1. Actually, I have one right here. And I got a couple of them because I needed to take some photos of some different artwork and different devices and things. So I need to take some reasonable pictures. And this has a screen in the back. You can see that there. I'm actually going to turn this up a little bit. It actually is full. I know this looks potentially ridiculous because I have it on RGB cycle mode right now. It will cycle through different RGB pictures, but this is settable to actually different color temperatures from like about 4,000 to almost 6,000 kelvins, if people know about photography. And it allows you to easily light and dial in your proper lighting to get or dial out effects or to get the lighting even in a particular room. And it's actually really, really nice and relatively inexpensive for what it does. The batteries last a tremendous amount of time. It's rechargeable while it's running with the USB-C adapter, which it comes with a nice extension on that. It's configurable to attach different cameras to it, and the lighting options are literally pretty much endless for any shade of color or light correction in kelvins. And like I said, I pointed out the screen for light intensity as well as temperature. It's a photographer's friend.
But possibly even more important, you can turn it around and then use it for powerful mood lighting, like these things behind me, but brighter.
Wait, could I actually use those for my lighting for me?
This is absolutely insane. If
I
I turn this on right now,
temperature you want, up to 8,500 Kelvin, it says here.
If I turn this around right now, everyone watching would be blinded.
Right, but it looks really good behind you on that
to.
curtain. You should mount it to the back of your chair, Brett.
Why don't I just mount it to the back of my head?
That looks good.
Exactly.
That looks great.
I want to mount it to the top of my monitor and get better lighting for myself, because look at this crap.
All right. One little taste. Oh, there you go. Oh.
It's okay. Hey, the iris will automatically adjust, probably. That looks good. I think the color backlighting is obviously, if you look behind me, I don't love that this is cycling when I want to hook it up to I don't know. It's a whole thing, but anyway.
So
lighting.
the armature on this, swings out. Here, I'll shut this down. The armature
for $70, that's not bad.
Now wait, does it include
and like I said,
a battery, or is that a separate purchase?
No, it absolutely includes the battery.
Oh, nice.
And like I said, you can set it to any color temperature, a variety of video effects. It even has things like storm. If you're shooting a video and you need like lightning effects, you can set it to a color temperature, bright white, and set it against, like your window of a set, and like have it do like lightning effects and stuff like that. So it's good for video as well as photography. Like I said, a photographer's friend.
I don't have this, so I had to simulate. There really is such a thing as storm lighting. I had to simulate that using these light sticks when I did that Be Quiet video ad. At the beginning, I had shaken the plant so it was moving, and then I had the camera go by, and then was having the light change, so it was like, it's like a storm and the wind is blowing the plant.
I'll see if I can cue up that effect.
I felt like it was worth all the work I did for that 1 second of video.
It was
Just have somebody rattling a metal sheet in the background and everything.
So here's another. You can set the. Let me pull this down a little bit. You can set the hue. Come on, focus. It's not really focusing very well here.
It's kind of. It was razor sharp earlier, and it's kind of.
Let me put it in a little closer.
There we go. Just did it.
You can set the hue and the saturation. Yep, you can set the hue, the saturation, and with the top rotary dial, you can set the intensity. So it's for those familiar with color spectrums, it's HSV.
Hey,
which
You
has
could-
Okay.
mappings to RGB and such. So it's actually, like I said, it's really quite helpful for setting the proper mood or lighting in any scene.
So what you're saying is you could dial in the exact PC per colors that
I could.
sort of darkish gray, blue, and green. Something I've attempted sort of to do with this L here.
Yeah.
It's kind of the PC
Is
per
that
colors.
what you're going for?
It just happened that way. Because one of the light strips, it's supposed to be teal, but one of the light strips displays that as blue, and the other one is green.
That seems wrong.
It is wrong, but these are old light strips, and I'm like, I did this set in like 10 minutes. I think that's it. No live stream next week. We're taking the week off. Should be a slow news week, I hope. Otherwise, maybe I'm a liar. But, we'll see you in a couple of weeks. Thank you for listening and or watching.
Thank you very much.